We are in the middle of a major change. I think everybody's aware of that. And this industry, from an HVAC side, has been in flux. People start to pay attention to what we do in the on the multifamily side, specific to codes and HVAC. R454B, for the folks on the call that are maybe utilizing systems that require that, there's been a hiccup in the supply chain on that particular refrigerant. It's pretty severe to the point where we're on an allocation. And so that has caused the price of that particular A2L refrigerant to skyrocket. It doesn't impact, it's just wiring. So it does not impact the installation tactics that your teams are familiar with. What'll happen as we transition from 410A to R32 or 454B, some of the tools will change, but the tactics will not change. So R32 has been in the market for about 11, 12 years all throughout the globe. And they're close to 400, this is a big number, there's close to 400 million units using it worldwide. So from
Neil, I want to start by asking you to introduce yourself to the group. Welcome. Thank you for making it happen on short notice, making things, moving things around to be with us today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Adrian. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Neil Cole here. I am the SVP for merchandising at Chadwell Supply, and rather new to the role, but and I'll say I think I'm in my 5th week with the company, but I'll give this a big but associated with today's topics. My background, I spent 12 years at Dyke and Goodman, which is an HVAC manufacturer, the largest one in the world. So when we're talking about some of the trends and things that are going on with 410A and other portions of the business, I'm pretty well versed in that. That's where I spent the majority of my career. So topics that we're discussing today should know a little bit about, but obviously I've been in HVAC pretty much my entire 20 plus year career. So just rather new with the Chadwell group here, but happy to be here and happy to share some insight on what we're experiencing and seeing in the marketplace from a national perspective. So
I know you've been here like in multifamily for a short time, but I'd like to get your take on what are some things from outside, from coming from outside looking in. Most of us here, have been around for decades maybe. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you get a tunnel vision, right? You're not really seeing, being inside from outside looking in. What are some opportunities that you see for multifamily that we're not maybe taking advantage of, we're not fully aware of?
Sure. HVAC specific or just
it could be HVAC specific. It could be just about anything.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's an excellent question. I'll back up just for a quick second. When I was with Dyke and Goodman, same company for those last 12 years, 8 of those were spent supporting entities like Chadwell, HT Supply. So familiar with multifamily, even though from an air conditioning manufacturer side of it, but supported the multifamily MRO business for probably 60% of the time I was there. So opportunities. So there is, we are in the middle of a major change. I think everybody's aware of that. And this industry, from an HVAC side, has been in flux, as everyone, again, is well aware for the last 4 to 5 years. Major changes from efficiency changes to refrigerant changes, right? So with that being said, the big thing that I'm seeing from the outside are, and I don't know if our folks on the phone or the call here are seeing this, but we're seeing some government regulations encroachment right into what we do in some areas, specific to even municipalities for particular cities. So, for example, there's some areas that we serve that our maintenance techs cannot touch a unit, right? Open up a unit on property without being EPA certified themselves, or a licensed contractor. Some of this is happening, and so what I'm seeing, what we're trying to look at from Chadwell's perspective is how can we better support your folks by offering maybe installation services, things that, as these regulations expand to where maybe our maintenance techs who used to be able to service the product or replace the product and no longer are able to do that. What are some solutions that we can provide? So we're launching into a lot of the installed services on HVAC to kind of meet that demand and get out in front of that. And so that is something I see ramping up as people start to pay attention to what we do in the on the multifamily side, specific to codes and HVAC. So that seems to be gaining some steam throughout different portions of the country at this point.
That's really great insight. I wanted to say before we move forward that, gentlemen, at any given point you have a question, please use that option on Zoom to raise your hand, or you could just intervene. It doesn't have to be anything super like bureaucratic here. It's not just about Neil talking at us, but it's a conversation back and forth. We want to get the best out of this conversation and out of Neil's time. So at this point, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the hand raise icon, and I'll be on a lookout, and I'll give you the floor. Wanted to say give a shout out to Steven with us today, Peter, that joined us earlier, and we also have Travis, we have Derek, we have Tim. Shout out to all of you, and then Noah too, and Mark, and Richard. So with that being said, I do have a question for you, Neil. The question is, tell me about your coverage. Are you guys national? Are you in all 50 states?
Not in all 50. We're expanding. We go as far west, or we're headquartered in Tampa, Florida. I'm sitting in Tampa right now as we speak, but we spread as far west as to Arizona, the Phoenix market, out to Vegas. We are bringing Denver, Colorado online this year, and then we kind of make our way back from that area back east. We are in most of the major markets, or we serve them. We either have bricks and mortar or we have coverage in those major markets. We're very heavy in Texas, obviously Florida, more sales coverage and bricks and mortar, I should say there. But we're looking at California, launching into that, doing the work to be Prop 65 compliant, which that's a long putt and a lot of work, but we're working through that right now, so that when the time is right, we will move towards the California markets at some point.
Any details on that Prop 65?
Right now, no, it's not a whole lot from our perspective. It has changed on that. There's just it's an audit process to go through every product from every vendor that we get that we potentially could move into that market. So it's just I would say, for a distributor like us, and we're I think most are aware, we're family owned. The Chadwell family owns the business. We're right on the cusp of about $1 billion in revenue. So we're the largest independently owned MRO distributor in the country. But a task like that is about a year in the making to complete. So very labor intensive. We do outsource some of that, but the Prop 65 compliance effort is it's an ongoing project. It is tedious. And so for the folks that have to participate in that, I feel your pain. But a lot of paperwork, a lot of regulatory work around that. And you really have to dedicate resources to it from a distributor supplier like ourselves.
Yeah, that's very informative. I had no idea. Obviously, I'm not familiar, never had deals in California, so I can't really, I'm not
Sure.
familiar. Just what I'm hearing from others.
Yeah, no, Prop 65 is associated with basically cancer risk, right? So it's what could cause if there's anything at all within a product that remotely could cause harm through, then that has to be flagged. So they all have to be certified. So that's we're combing through with our vendor partners.
Let me ask you next about your coverage for installations. Is this a service that you guys are about, like you're in process of building, or is it something that's already existing? And if it is, which markets is it available in? Because we have folks here on a call that might need your services pretty soon.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, evolving. We have flags planted in Florida, in I believe the Atlanta market. I'm not sure of all the others yet, but there it is. We are looking at expanding that into all of our coverage areas. We thoroughly believe that this is to get out in front of this. What is really the train is coming down the tracks here on with some of the products, especially HVAC. So it may be another year out before they change some of the things that they've done in some of the areas of Florida down here where it mandates that, but we feel like we need to get ahead of that. And then the service itself is we're sourcing specific HVAC contractors who we vet to make sure they meet the standards that we have set forth. And so that is a process there as well as vetting through all those folks. But in most of Florida we have coverage. Atlanta, I think we have some in Texas too. I'm not exactly sure, and I can get back to you and send you a list of to the group of where we have all that.
That'll be great. Let's next go to the 410A systems, where we are as far as inventory. How hard, or not so hard, is it to like get 410A inventory? What's kind of like the situation nationwide? And maybe you could speak to particular markets, especially the large ones. So I could we have Tim here on a call. He's based in Colorado. We have Derek on a call. He has portfolios in multiple states,
Sure.
Georgia and Texas for sure. There are other states too that I don't necessarily recall at this time, but I think market specific would also be like very informative for us on a call and others that are going to watch the recording.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'll say this. I think most are aware, but I'm going to say it anyway. The 410A products, I think as most of us know, there was a hard stop from manufacturing at the beginning of this year. So January 1st, 2025, no more 410A units could be produced by any manufacturer. On our 410A unit production was December 31st, 2024. So that has left, as you can imagine, a big void there. Daikin, my former employer, started producing A2L compliant units. I want to say it's in June of 2024. So they got out ahead of the curve there. So, but once the hard stop hit us on basically January 1st of this year, that was all the 410A product that could be produced. So what was in the market was the market, right? So that has left us in the end, and I say us, that's the industry in a point of transition. So we are now moving to A2Ls, and so the sell-through period for all distributors, manufacturers, of what they have left from the build on that completed on January 1st of this year, that product must be installed by the end of this year. So we cannot plant 2020 or in 2026, we cannot install 410A products on property. We can't sell it. That's a big deal. So that leaves us right now. There are shortages everywhere. Most of the manufacturers either do not have 410A product in their barns to ship to distributors or customers. I believe most of that's been deployed. We at Chadwell took a very aggressive stance on 410A. So our position specifically compared to other manufacturers, to other distributors in the marketplace, I feel like we're in a position of advantage here. We have a tremendous amount of 410A, enough that we believe that will pull us right up to the drop dead date of the end of this year. So our inventory position is one of strength on it. We have it's spread all throughout our network. We are currently ordering and bringing in A2Ls, such as R32 based product and R454B product, but R454B, for the folks on the call that are maybe utilizing systems that require that, there's been a hiccup in the supply chain on that particular refrigerant. It's pretty severe to the point where we're on an allocation. And so that has caused the price of that particular A2L refrigerant to skyrocket. I mean, I think our price has doubled over the last month or so on that particular unit. But the 410A, I'll bounce back to that. The 410A product that is in the market is all there is. So if you can get your hands on it, great. I believe the refrigerant itself, and then you folks can attest to this, the R410A refrigerant is starting to escalate in price a little bit. So, as they cut production, that's usually how it works, right? They're going to continue to eliminate 410A refrigerant out of the market over the next several years. So as supply decreases, and it is going to have an effect on that. So, but again, specifically to Chadwell, our position on 410A is very strong. So if there's a location in one of your markets, there's a very good chance that we're going to have what you need for the foreseeable future into the cooling season here. Can't speak to that for others, even when I was on the other side of the equation as a manufacturer. There were some that did not take the same position that Chadwell did as far as investing in the inventory. Their strategy was to get out ahead and start selling the A2L based products. So you're going to see that continue to deplete itself.
Now, you mentioned the equipment, the 410A equipment. How do you guys do on the refrigerant? And is that rule applying to refrigerant as well? It's been discontinued as of January 1st, the production?
Yeah, the refrigerant will be in the market for service for the foreseeable future. They're just going to decrease the amount of production. Hence, the amount of refrigerant out there is going to be less and less over time. But you're going to, so that's where, I anticipate the pricing of 410A. It's a lever they pull, right, to get us to switch, right? They're gonna elevate that price just based on demand. So, but 410A, the refrigerant, will be available for the foreseeable future, as because of so much product's been installed in the market. They have to have some sort of refrigerant to service that.
Gentlemen, any questions on this for Neil? Let's actually switch to what's coming, the A2L, the transition, how hard it is, how do you do on inventory? What do you already mentioned, like the difference between the two refrigerants. I'd like to get your take on like what do you advise for strategy based on what you're seeing from a supplier side, right? Not necessarily something that we all exposed to, but you are, because that's
Sure. Yeah. No, great question. So the transition to A2L. So for those who aren't familiar, A2L is a classification of refrigerant. It is a flammable refrigerant. It's not explosive. So it'll take a flame. You can put a flame to it. It will burn. It will not explode, but it will burn. So it is the government came to and mandated this type of refrigerant because for the folks that have been in the business for a long time, R22, the predecessor to 410A, was an ozone depleter, right? So they wanted to get away from R22 because it supposedly took chunks of the ozone layer with it. 410A they see that as a global warmer. So as a result of the last two refrigerant iterations, to achieve a lower global warming efficiency rating there, they had to go to A2Ls, which both refrigerants, there's R454B, and we really have two choices, and then R32. They're both flammable. So that means that the indoor units that we are working on, if you get a new indoor unit for an R32 or an R454B system, it is going to have a sensor that senses leaks to make sure that it'll shut the system down for safety purposes because of the flammability of the product, right? So that's a big change there. That it doesn't impact, it's just wiring. So it does not impact the installation tactics that your teams are familiar with. What'll happen as we transition from 410A to R32 or 454B, some of the tools will change, but the tactics will not change. Your installation practices will remain the same. You're still going to pull a vacuum. You're going to do the normal. These refrigerants are very close as far as pressures go to the current 410A. So you're basically going to be switching using a different set of gauges, a different vacuum pump, because of the two refrigerants, you don't want to mix them. But the tactics, the installation practices and tactics that you're currently using today will apply to the new product coming forward. So there's nothing new to learn on that for our technicians. It is you can use existing line sets. So the line sets in your facility, your facilities now, if they're cleaned properly, they are flushed properly. We pull a vacuum. You do not have to pull line sets out for either one of those products. So again, the tactics there's not a whole lot of difference as it comes to installing it and handling the product. But you will not be able to, and I know we do this every day, you won't be able to drop an existing A2L outdoor unit on, or excuse me, a new outdoor unit that is an A2L refrigerant on an existing air handler. That will not work, and that's what we've done in the past. We do it here. So, the days you're going to end up having to budget for swapping the air handler and the outdoor unit when it comes to replacing that system. So the practice of just dropping a condensing unit on existing air handlers, those days are going to be behind us.
I'll have a follow-up question. Richard, I see that you have your hand up. I'll have a question and then I'll go to you. Okay. So just, be ready to unmute when, after Neil responds. So I just remember, Neil, when we switched from R22 to 410A, we kind of heard the same thing, right? You're going to have to, they even started saying the line sets will have to be like replaced altogether. That's how we started the whole system plus the lines. And then it turned out that some chemicals were available to flush out the lines, so you could save the lines. And then also turned out that, some of the coils could, stay in place if properly, flushed. Is this why? Do you know the reason why like this is not the case in this particular situation?
Yeah, it has to do with the sensor that the leak detector, sniffer, whatever you want to call it, but it's the new component on the air handler, and it's on furnaces as well for furnace markets. But it has to do with field installing that. The government will not sign off on field installed sensors, and that is what's preventing it right now. And so they don't trust, and I don't go along with this, but the take is that they don't believe it'll be installed to spec, which again, that's opinions on this vary, but that's the reason why it is tied back to the installation of that sensor. They don't want that field installed. So they want a new unit with it has to have a sensor in it to make sure there's no leaks, of a flammable material.
So it's basically a regulation thing, not a technical incompatibility. Am I reading this right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's kind of the same situation as for 10A. Some people are still going to do it.
Yeah.
Not everybody pull permits. I mean, whether that's a requirement or not, just reality in a field is that we will have teams out there at the site level like doing swap outs, doing replacements.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot that won't be permitted.
Yeah, we did that. So on the Goodman side, we actually years ago we wrote a paper on. We knew permits weren't being pulled. We knew the system wouldn't be rated when we would drop a 410A unit on an R22 air handler, but we knew it would work, and so we warranted it. And they had a document that said so. I'm not saying this won't evolve. It's just where it stands right now. This is the marching orders that we have, but you're 100% right. That is what happened, and Goodman embraced it years ago, right? They knew we weren't permitting. We didn't have to have an AHRI match system. Well, all we needed was something that would, cool our residents off. So that is, and they signed off on that and warranted it. So I don't disagree. There will be some evolution here.
Richard, you've been waiting, so please, sir, ask your question.
Well, actually, it got answered. I was worried about the sensors and how reliable they are.
Yeah.
And, if they can't be field replaced, you're replacing the whole unit anytime the sensor goes down.
Yeah, that's a great question, Richard, because they're brand new, right? And so there's not a lot of those in the market. So from our perspective as a distributor, I don't know, we filed a warranty on one yet, because there's not that many out there. I think I'm going to scratch a question, or I'm going to get back to their group on that alone, because I want to find out how they will handle that, because that's been the mandate, is that they don't trust us to install on air. It was on air handlers. Now, there are on furnaces, there are sensors that can be installed on the furnaces. And I'm not familiar. I guess it has something to do with where they're placed, or why they bless it on existing furnaces and not air handlers. I'm not familiar with that. But there are sensors you can buy separately that you can add to a 5-year-old furnace, right? To make it compliant with an A2L refrigerant. So I'm guessing it has to do something with the placement on the coil, as it pertains to an air handler.
Neil, I'm curious from a size perspective, how are the new systems sized? Like dimensions, actually.
Yeah.
Like, most of the air handlers, had to be squeezed in with the water heater, with a boy on top of the low boy and things like that. So from a manufacturing perspective and size perspective, dimensions, are they made to kind of like, similar sizes to what we currently have?
Yeah, actually, great question again. So I'll speak again from a previous employer. Air handlers for the Goodman Daikin brand did not grow at all. As efficiencies grew, as far as the government mandated a more efficient unit, being sensitive to what you just outlined, being above a water heater, the way that they were able to accomplish keeping the cabinet the same size was go with more efficient motors, some other components, TXVs in some cases, thermal expansion valves in some cases, in an effort to keep that box the same size and go right back where it should. With the A2Ls, same scenario. Believe it or not, on the Goodman Daikin side, there's some outdoor units that actually got smaller in size, because the R32 that Daikin uses is a more efficient refrigerant. So I believe there's a couple units that got 12% size reduction, which for what we do is huge, right? We have a certain amount of space where we can put a certain amount of units. So having units swell regulations is not a great thing for us. With this transition to the new A2Ls, I believe we represent our Brothers line maintains a similar dimension, as well as some of the ICP that we carry as well. So they did not get bigger. So that was good in that sense. But the outdoor units, some of them actually got smaller, which is very good news. I think it was a 2-ton or maybe a 1.5. Those actually decreased in size.
I'm not too familiar with the Brothers line. Is that like something that's made specifically for Chadwell to sell?
Yes. It's a brand that we bring in. It's an exclusive brand for Chadwell. And it is right now that's a predominant. That makes up probably, I'd say 50% of our current R410A inventory. Great unit, great warranty. We're just it's a private label that is exclusive to us.
And is that made by Goodman,
It is not. No, this is an overseas brand. Yes.
an overseas brand?
Mhm.
And then you're planning on continuing this line of products for the new
Yes.
HVAC systems?
Yes. Yes. We'll have an exclusive brand. Brothers will transition along the lines, just like the others. So they can't. They were so they the same cutoff date for domestic manufacturers were applied to the international. So what we have on 410A Brothers is what we're going to have, and then what's coming behind that will be an R32 based product, another A2L product.
I'm curious about your take. You mentioned some refrigerants being more expensive than others.
Mhm.
Give us more insight on the refrigerants that go with the A2L.
So, yeah, great question. Again,
Well,
yeah, great question. So the two major A2Ls, the R454B and R32. R454B is a blend of two different refrigerants. So 410A was a blend of I think it was three different refrigerants. So half of I want to no, actually I think it's 2/3 of R454B is actually R32, right? And then the other part of that is I think it's Y123 4YZ. Don't quote me on that number, but it's close. Is the other chemical that is a part of R54B. There is a shortage right now on that particular product. The difference between the two, so you have some fractionization. So if we have a leak, the two refrigerants, they don't leak at the same rate out of a unit. And so now we no longer have R454B. We have something where it's not the same product. The ratios are off. So that is a little bit of an issue when it comes to repairing. You're not supposed to. I know we all do it, but you're not supposed to top it off because again, it is not the true ratio of the two components. So it's a different. It's not quite as efficient. But I don't know many people that are not going to top it off if we're just for practicality, right? It's still going to work. But if you ask the manufacturers, no, don't top it off, take it all out and put a fresh charge in. R32 is a single component, so there's none of that takes place. Being a single component, it handles and acts like R22 back in the day. And so there's some advantages to that. The major advantage with R454B is their global warming ratio is lower. That's, if that's a selling feature, great. The one on 32 is a little higher. But the thing to know about both of these refrigerants and 32 in general, it's not new technology. So so R32 has been in the market for about 11, 12 years all throughout the globe. And they're close to 400, and this is a big number, there's close to 400 million units using it worldwide. So from window units to mini split systems to regular split systems. So this is not new technology. It is proven, is a proven product that has a huge and long track record. So it's not something that we're being tested, here in our market. 454B has same thing. There's a track record. So these are not just made up on this. So we are not a kind of a lab rat as it pertains to these two lines. And Daikin in particular, as I said, they have close to 400 million units that have been running for 10, 12 years on utilizing this refrigerant.
We have a question from Tim. He wants to know if there's any supplies, delays issues or pricing issues when it comes to refrigerant or entire systems due to the tariff situation. I guess, the question is how much is it manufactured here locally in the United States, how much you're importing, whether that's refrigerant or entire systems, and if there's any, like, is that supply chain affected in any way currently?
Yeah, great question. So for refrigerant right now, there's an issue with 454B. There's a shortage, and it's tied to the cylinders that hold the refrigerant. So there's not enough cylinders, and there was an issue there that popped up a couple months ago that has created a shortage of the R454B. Now, anticipate that, so that obviously has sent pricing through the roof. Anticipate that being July when we start to see that pressure alleviated some throughout the rest of the summer. And so I think the pricing on that will come down, but it hit, I would say in the last, I think I said it earlier, it's doubled in the last couple of weeks because of this shortage and this is refrigerant specifically. R32, and I've talked to a number of our suppliers, some of the folks that we use. We don't see a shortage with that. Some suppliers are seeing some, some delays in shipping, and it's to some of the cylinders that hold the product. Our suppliers aren't having those issues. So I think overall, and I've spoken to some of my counterparts at Daikin here recently about this, they are not seeing it, and they're the largest user of it at this point. So they're not seeing things that are really hindering accessibility to R32. It is the price on 32 has been, I think, going up slightly because of some of those hiccups, but I don't see that the big spikes coming on that like we've had on 454B. But I do anticipate 454B to regulate itself and get back down to a more level or more appropriate level where it was. I see that happening as we go through the summer as they solve that issue. Equipment wise, you are seeing, because of some of the additional sensors, I believe we had some increases here recently. One was attributed to some of the tariffs, and prior to that was to the components that were needed to be installed on the A2L product. So I would say since January of this year, we've probably experienced a 10 to 15% increase on the equipment itself versus 410A. So there's a delta there. Some of the manufacturers were alluding to 20+% price increases, but I haven't seen that fall out. I think they overshot a little bit, but versus again the 410A products that we're all familiar with. But there's a gap there, and I would say it's about 10 to 15% currently.
Let's talk a little bit about retail ballpark pricing for the two refrigerants and also for like systems. Let's just take like the two-tone. I think that's the most popular for us. Probably your bestseller too, right? The two-tone system.
Yeah.
What are we looking at price-wise, roughly?
Profit?
No. What are we looking at roughly? How much do they cost? How much each of these two refrigerants cost, and how much a two-tone system cost with air handler and
yeah. So I would say again, I don't have it. I'm sorry, I should have had it in front of me, but it's going to be about 10 to 15% more than your previous 410A. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me, but it's what you're paying before. I would expect a delta of about 10 to 15% above what it was before 410A. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, Adrian. I wish I'd tell you if I had it.
Well, it's okay if we say 10-15%. We could just add to what we currently paying. We'll figure it out. No.
Yeah, that should cover you.
Yeah, it's no big deal. We don't want a precise. I don't want a precise number, but
Sure.
Something ballpark. What can you tell us about the water heater supply?
Yeah.
For the season.
Great question again. So I did a little research on that prior to our call today, and speaking with our purchasing department, again, the departments I oversee, our two major manufacturers we're not seeing any issues, and they don't have any forecasted issues, and that is State and GE are not alluding to any supply chain issues for us throughout this year related to water heaters. So it seems from our perspective to be pretty stable. Now there may be other manufacturers that are experiencing something out there, but the two that we are representing have conveyed that they don't see any hiccups headed our way at this time. So are you guys hearing other news out there that there's going to be disruptions on this?
There was something that it was passed on to me by Paul Rhodes. He's a very well-known name, educator in the industry.
Yep.
He's also an executive. I'm not sure if do you know Paul?
I know the name. I know the name. I've not met him, but I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul did pass this on to me as a possible topic. So I'm sure that it's been stemmed from a real concern, not like a hypothetical scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're it's drawn some attention. My questions have related to this call. So, but the good news is they're at this point they're not expressing any concerns to us.
Tim, you're up next, sir. Please.
Yeah, my question is, or more of a comment. I have several asset ownership groups that have proactively started pre-ordering water heaters because we know that asset is being hitting its end of life on the water heater shortage. I have one asset that we just ordered 300 water heaters with a supplier to be able and negotiated a volume discount, but also volume storage for when we do need them. So as much as we don't think that it's coming, I think we're going to see that with the shortage because people are being proactive. I think that's where the shortage is going to come from.
They're buying it up preemptively is a little
bit.
I don't call it a panic buy, but just doing their due diligence.
Well, they don't want to get gouged at the end when they do have if they do have a shortage. They'd rather be invested at this point.
Gotcha. That makes sense to
me. Tim, I'm just curious. What is it different this year than last year, less hot, like last season, and the years before? Is there a new thing that trigger like this decision of that ownership group to buy 300 water heaters?
Interest rates, tariffs, and ability to store it. I mean, right now, when we negotiated with our previous suppliers were not willing to store it for us. Yeah. But now that we pay for it up front, they're willing to store it. They're willing to bring in, shipping containers and store them in that where they're making the money up front and then they're guaranteed the business. But with the uncertainty of the interest rates, the uncertainty of what tariffs are going to hit where, we've seen also a lot of strategy from suppliers bringing things not through LA, Louisiana, or Florida. They're bringing it through Mexico. So if it's coming from a tariffed country like China, it's all coming through Mexico now to reduce those tariffs or at least circumvent some of the tariffs that are going to be hit. Yeah. But that's also adding to the supply deadlines, and it's adding to the downtime of proactively ordering, specifically for plumbing fixtures. I mean, we're getting ready to do 110 unit renovations where I'm ordering the kits all right now because they are a 6-week lead time because of the new routes that they're taking.
Yeah, Tim, your point's well taken. We are currently doing exactly what you alluded to. We're taking funding up front and storing product, HVAC. I think it may be some water heaters, kind of like a pre-buy, right? We're warehousing it and doling it out as needed by some of our customers. So that we're participating in that. And it's been, we've had several folks go that route with the tariffs, and we can talk a little bit about that because we have a strong relationship with some overseas suppliers there. The minute that the news came out this week, we ships hit the water, right? So here comes the Navy across the sea, and so that is luckily for us. Again, we're very well invested in inventory, so we were able to kind of ride the tide for a lot longer than some of the other folks, so to kind of hedge against this. But yeah, now it's with our 90-day window, we are, we're rapidly, begging for those ships to land. So yeah, things are changing right now.
I've even heard of ships that are just floating right now and just waiting for those windows, and they would rather incur the fuel and the labor costs of floating in the Pacific Ocean for another 2 weeks than pay the tariffs of getting into port.
That's correct. Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Well, when the price of fuel goes up, then there's not going to be an issue, right?
Right.
I mean, there's not going to be a possibility.
Mhm. Yeah, they're going to land somewhere. Turn the engine on.
Yeah, it's all about that math. Neil, I want to wrap up with asking you to provide some strategy for us as buyers of yours and as managers of real estate. What are some strategies in light of what we already covered during the hour?
Yeah.
that you suggest?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I think with this kind of pre-buy thing is starting to gain some momentum that Tim alluded to. As I said, we are actively doing this. And so we're probably a little late in the game on the HVAC side, but we are currently doing that, but we have to be out of that business by the end of this year. But I think there's a play there to, as the volatility in the market, and I don't anticipate, this tariff thing going away completely. So there's going to be some volatility all throughout for the foreseeable future. If your suppliers are currently able to work with you on programs like that, where you're locking in at numbers and they're warehousing and then doling it out as needed, I think that's a good thing to keep the flow of product available. I think from a strategy point, I think budgeting, we need to be conscious with the change on HVAC, where we're used to dropping an outdoor unit on a property or on a apartment. Now it's going to be two pieces. So we need to understand that from a budgeting perspective, there's going to be a cost to replacing that indoor unit if we do it right. So that's something to be very budget conscious as we go through the budgeting process for 2026 and even this year. I think some of the products and things that are being affected by tariffs, as much as we can kind of come under the wire right now when this 90-day window. I think there's it'd be a move to, again, like Tim said, let's get your orders in and try to avoid those the potential penalties, because this has been trying to trace this and track this from a distributor's perspective as well as yours, and appreciating what it does to you. It's a nightmare, right? It changed daily. One day a day changed twice, right? Our tariff amounts changed twice. So the volatility, if you can offset the volatility by making some investments, I think there's a play there, especially until this just kind of calms down a little bit.
Noah, you're up next, sir. All
right. So I'm just curious if you have any suggestions for we manage entirely low-income housing, so we don't really have the ability to do bulk purchasing or warehousing as much as our conventional counterparts. Do you have any suggestions to try to offset the tariffs and the delays? I hear you talking about budgeting, and that's really what I'm picking up on, and just saying, I heard the 15 to 20% earlier, and I've been telling people probably at least 20% increase on your HVAC costs for the last 6-8 months anyways. But I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on ways to try to offset the costs without being able to purchase in bulk or do the warehousing.
Yeah, I would say you work with your suppliers. I mean, if there's an opportunity, especially in your situation, for them to for them to warehouse it for you, like we've been talking about, and without, being, it doesn't have to be in a monstrosity of a PO, right? Especially with what you're working with. I say bring those opportunities because for us as supplier, right, we get cash in hand, we're golden. So that's a big win for us. And so I think there's some flexibility around that. I know we're very flexible about it at Chadwell. So I don't think it has to be where we're allocating millions of dollars in pre-purchases, call it. I think there's, you're with your established relationships. I think it's something to talk about with the suppliers, your incumbents there. I know, like I said, that we're open to those things to kind of mitigate against some of that. We'll carry it. You guys are paying us. We'll carry it and dole it out as needed for, a period of time. So I think that idea is gaining a little steam. I really do. Not just with us. I think others are doing it too, obviously.
Yeah, I guess I imagine getting your product selection down to a minimal amount of options probably helps a bit too, because I assume that helps you guys get an idea of what the stock will need to be, and
Absolutely.
Probably a lot easier to do the warehousing that way. So
you're 100%.
That's our next goal, anyways. So
yeah, you're all over it. And it's an ease. It eases a lot of pains for us, right? It's it helps us with budgeting and forecasting, all that good stuff. So there's many benefits to both, and that's how we see it. Great question.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we appreciate your time today. This was very informative. Thank you for joining us. I hope to get you back to discuss other strategy stuff when it comes to purchasing. There's a lot going on in the world out there, and want to stay ahead of the game, right? To understand what's happening before it hits us, right? So we could better prepare.
Yeah.
And then to all of you on a call today, thank you so very much. We're gonna have this recording available on YouTube for those that couldn't participate in probably like 7 to 10 days, hopefully sooner than that. Thank you all. Have an amazing afternoon, and see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Good being with you.
Bye.